welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessikah with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast, and I am here with the author of the book Stone Cold Fox, which is really good. It has an amazing cover. It has an amazing title, and I'm just going to let her introduce herself and tell us what this book is about.
Great. Thanks for having me, Jessikah. My name is Rachel Koller Croft, and I'm the author of Stone Cold Fox, which is about Bee, a very ambitious young woman, the somewhat reformed daughter of a con artist. And she has her eyes on marrying into the 1% via a very eligible, boring bachelor by the name of Collin to kind of hang up her conning hat for good. And she's a total bombshell. So she knows that the challenge won't necessarily be getting the ring from Collin, but rather the approval of his family and his inner circle, namely his childhood best friend, Gale Wallace-Leicester, who will stop at nothing to keep Bee out of their very luxurious fold.
First of all, I have to say, so Gale Wallace-Leicester, her name, I don't know like where you are, but like when I was a teenager, this show called My So-Called Life was really popular, and the love interest, Jared Leto's character's name was Jordan Catalano, and nobody could just call him Jordan. Everyone, like, they talk about him, they'd be like Jordan Catalano, and I feel that way about Gale Wallace-Leicester, because whenever, like, she was rarely ever called Gale. It was Gale Wallace-Leicester, and it just made her that much more annoying. And like Bee herself is kind of, I suppose, like she comes off at first, although her character develops as an unlikable narrator in the beginning. But man, like Gale Wallace-Leicester is really, really unlikable. And she has like the money and the clout to back it up. And I just like, so there's like a cat and mouse game going on between Bee and Gale. There's a cat and mouse game going on between Bee and Gale. And Gale is in love with Collin. They are childhood best friends. And Bee wants Collin to marry her, and she doesn't dislike him, she doesn't love him, but there are a lot of qualities about him that she likes and she thinks it could work. And Collin is not interested in Gale romantically, unless you felt that he was.
No, I think that was a very unrequited love situation. And because to your point, what you were saying, like Collin is pretty well-meaning. Like he's not a monster. He's a little bit of a dope, but he's not someone that is very malicious. So I think why Gale still pines for him all this time is because I don't think he's ever been crystal clear about Gale. I'm not interested. Just because
we've all been or a party to those situations, be it on one side or be it on the other side, or be it just like watching somebody and being like,
right,
what is that, like that Sex in the City, like he's not that into you, she's not that into
you. That's exactly right. Like Collin is just not that into Gale, but they have a history. Their families, they grew up together. They've known each other their entire lives. And the last thing he wants to do is hurt her feelings. So he's never been super clear with her about that, even though his behavior is quite clear that he's not romantically interested in her. So when, Bee comes into their lives, Gale is ready to go scorched earth, which is funny too, because it's actually not that much about Collin. Like it seems that way on the surface, but what they're really up against is like, does Bee deserve to be among their ranks? And Gale wants to protect what they have, and Bee thinks she should be in there. So that's really what it's setting up. Because even for all of Bee's faults, we can call them, she's not really, I don't think, your average gold digger. Like she likes the finer things, don't we all? But that's not really her motivation. She had a very wild and unsafe upbringing. So the money that Collin and his family possess just represent to her a lifetime of safety and security where she doesn't have to worry about those things anymore. And for someone like her, that is her ultimate goal.
For sure. And like the more you sort of go back into Bee's past and see the layers unfold as to how she became this con woman, you really do start, or at least I started to really empathize with her and where she was coming from. And yeah, you're right. It was a little bit about Collin, but it was also like a lot of like, Gale, like it was almost like she felt entitled
Yeah.
to somebody like Collin, and Collin generally, according to Gale, didn't date people like them. So here comes this woman who Gale knows is not who she says she is, and looks like she's actually going to make it in to their inner circle. And Gale is just like ready to take it to the mats. And B is like, oh, you think you can do this?
Right.
And this sounds like very comical, and there are parts when it is, but I do have to tell the audience that this book is pretty dark and twisty and razor sharp. It has claws. It held my attention. This is definitely, to me, it was a thriller. It was a page turner. Where did this story come from?
Oh, that's such a good question. I feel like I've always wanted to write a book for my whole life. And it was Bee's voice that came to me first. And I'll cop to it. Bee is an amalgamation of the darker sides of my best girlfriends and me. And I say this because we all grew up in the early 2000s where the larger perception of women was super harsh and grim and specific. And even though now that we're in our 30s and we can talk logically about all these things and know that it was wrong and it's not right, there are just things that live inside you for forever, and you work on like exercising those demons as best you can. But there's like still moments where you look in the mirror and you're like I it just, to me, I wanted to channel some of that through a character like Bee. The other thing that I just find so interesting is the type of woman that aspires to marry up. And I thought about how I could subvert that a bit. So Bee, as you said, is a pretty complex narrator. And I knew there were going to be people that didn't like her or respond to her. But as a writer, I was like, how can I get them to hang out with her anyway? Like, if I make her funny, that's all I need to do here, because people love hanging around with funny people, even if they're monsters. Bravo has made an entire business off of that. So I knew if Bee was smart and cheeky and fun, despite some of her nefarious deeds, I figured readers would want to hang out with her and see, go on the ride with her, despite if they liked her or not. So it all really started with Bee, and then I just I had like a brief outline, which I like to do, but I find my process, I discover a lot of stuff as I'm writing. Sometimes characters will pop in. Ren Daly's a really good example of that. The influencer character, she was not in my outline, and she just appeared and made me laugh. And I was like, okay, we're going to use her as a pawn for Bee. So I do discover a lot while I'm writing, but I do like to know generally where I'm headed in the middle and where I'm going to end up, because I just think it makes the process that much more seamless. But yeah, definitely it was Bee's voice because she made me laugh, and then also putting her in kind of a dark situation. Oh, and then with Mother. So my first draft, I'm a screenwriter by trade. So my first draft was pretty concise because I'm just used to writing. You just don't have as much real estate on a script. So my agent really responded to the first draft, but she said, you realize you wrote a novel about a complicated mother-daughter relationship. And I was like, oh, you're right. I guess I did. So when I went back in the revision stage, I wanted to set up the flashbacks in a very specific way because they didn't exist initially, but I wanted to show her growing up with her mother and just kind of lean into that whole relationship, setting her off on this path to begin with. And that kind of became the North Star. Because at the end of the day, she wants safety and security, but also internally, she wants to confirm with herself that she's not her mother's daughter, which is not always so cut and dry. I mean, there are moments where you're like, B, what are you doing? That's something mother would do. And she has to make these decisions by the end of the novel about who she wants to be.
Yeah, really, it was just so good and so complex. And I like that, the way that mother is introduced is sort of as an aside a few times before you actually meet the character. Her reputation precedes her. You're with B, you're hanging out with her, and she makes a few side comments to her, and then you're just like, oh, her, and it's mother, and you don't meet that character for a bit, one-on-one, and it was very nicely done. And man, she was brutal. Yeah. uh I really, just like I said, I loved it. So you say that you are a screenwriter by trade. What have you written? What do you like?
Yes. My first produced movie actually came out last year, and it's streaming on Amazon Prime right now. If anyone listening likes horror movies, I wrote a horror movie set in the world of country music. It's called Torn Hearts, starring Katie Seagal. And I wrote all of the original songs in the movie, and it's a gas. It's super fun. Lots of hot pink, lots of fighting between the women, and it's all about ambition and fame and all of these things that interest me. So that's the first film that I've had produced, but I've been working as a screenwriter since about 2015, selling scripts. But Hollywood is a whole thing where you can make a living off of it quite nicely, and your scripts might never get made. So I was very excited that Blumhouse
Right.
made them.
Yeah, you get optioned, and they're like, here's money, and then it sits in option for a while. First of all, I have to say, I love Katie Seagal.
Me
I
too.
love horror. That sounds fabulous. I will be watching that as soon as my kids go to bed tonight.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that is 100% my jam. But yeah, no, that is true. And also I was a film theory person back in the day, which means I was like, took my undergrad and ruining movies for people.
Oh, great.
Like I sit there, it's better because I'm far, far removed from that world. It's been a really long time, but there was a point for a while after college where I would just sit and I'd watch these movies and I'd be like, yeah, so this and this and this and this plot point and the final girl this, and people would be like, could you please, I'm just I can't even be scared of this anymore. And I'll be like, yeah, welcome to my world.
I know, when you're looking at a movie with a closer lens. I know my husband is a producer, and he will always like pick up things like, did you see the boom back there? Or did you see that was ADR? And I'm like, I'm just trying to watch the movie, honey. But I guess it's just the nature of our business that we're in.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's definitely fun. But yeah, no, that sounds amazing.
And
So
you'll
so
see a lot of, if you like Stone Cold Fox, I presume you will enjoy Torn Hearts as well.
I feel like Stone Cold Fox would make a fabulous like limited series.
I
It's
agree with you.
Yeah. Whoever's listening, hey, Amazon Prime, you've already taken care of Torn Hearts, Stone Cold Fox. It's, because I'm thinking about the stuff that I have seen in limited series, and what I kin this book to things like, I don't want to say but in a way, yes, because it's not horror up front, but it's got like the pacing, and it's got the reveals. And Carolyn Kepnes, by the way, does write horror, and she has this short story. I forget what it's called, but all I can say is I will never stop thinking about it, and it like
Oh,
there's
yeah, I love her books. I love the
so
You
good.
series. I'm a big fan, and I like the show as well.
Oh,
It's a lot of
and
fun.
she also wrote a book called Providence, which is like,
Yes, it
yeah,
was
that
different, but I really enjoyed it.
one of my absolute favorites. It was so unique. So if you're listening to us talk about things we like, check that one out too. But
Yes.
Stone Cold Fox, getting back to Stone Cold Fox, I feel like it's got that in it because it has that horror adjacent, that pulse racy. What was the other one about the toxic relationship? Corolla Lovering, Tell Me Lies. That's another
Yes.
one where
Mhm.
like it's not horror, but it kind of is because the things that
It's the
happen are
thrillers
rough.
that have, yeah, a dark
Yeah,
thriller
dark
with,
thriller.
women largely at the center. Um,
Totally. Yeah.
like I think about Big Little Lies a lot when I'm thinking about what I would want the show to look like. I think about Succession a lot, which I think the women on that show are great too, but it's a very masculine show, and I kind of like thinking about Stone Cold Fox as like the feminine version of that show. So yeah, it's obviously something I think about a lot, and I can't say anything in one direction or the other, but we can all be very optimistic. Let's put it that way.
I would love it. I mean, really, it really is just so good. And I was thinking about another book that was adapted that I'm kidding this to was The Luckiest Girl Alive, which they did do a TV series about, and I wish that they not a TV series, I'm sorry, a
The
Netflix
movie.
movie. And
Yeah.
that's another one that I wish that they had sort of stretched out, not just because I love Mina Kunis, and I think that the actor who they got to play her as a younger one,
Yes.
I mean, they
Kiara
could
something. She was wonderful.
they could not have, she was also in Cruel Summer. They could not have cast a better cast. And I know things need to be adapted. I just would have spent more time in that world fleshing out that story, because the book itself, again, like all of these things are things that Stone Cold Fox should be in the limited series that I hope happens, but read the book because
Yes.
it is amazing.
Thank you so much.
So other than the things we discussed, what do you enjoy? And are you working on something, a book post Stone Cold Fox?
Yes, I actually just finished a first draft of my second novel that I'm very excited about. I don't think we're sharing like everything about it, but what I can allude to is similar to Torn Hearts, but a different genre of music. There's going to be a big music influence for book 2, and it might even be a little spooky. So we can put that feather in our caps for now, but I'm really, really excited about it. And then I hope to one day be able to write a sequel to Stone Cold Fox, because truthfully, I could write 100 books as B. I don't want to spoil the ending, but there's things that happen that I really want to see, where she ends up and how she responds to certain things going on in her life, post where the book ends.
Oh my God. Oh, I have to ask about the title. Where did the
Yes.
title come from? Please tell me.
Well, it's so funny. I have to give credit to my editor for this one because the title is so good. My working title, almost the entire time I was drafting, was called Foxes, because I just thought all the women were so cunning and foxy and sly, and I just thought, and I don't know, I'm a big animal person, so like foxes are one of my. I like the way it sounded.
Also, families like the cases, fox
Totally,
hunting was really,
it's upper
really.
crust animal.
I
Dens. I mean,
knew
there's a lot of.
yeah. I
There's a
knew
lot.
somebody back in the day who told me that her grandmare, and they set the parents up, and here's a picture of them fox hunting together. And I'm from Long Island, and that world does kind of still exist, but not really. But it existed much more prominently, I guess, when this friend's grandmere
Right.
was a child.
Calling them grandmere.
But the thing was that, like, when she's talking about this to me, I was like, I thought that this wasn't real, but
Right.
it is.
It seems
So
so like of another time.
it works in that way because, the cases, and you talk about like the names of the people at one point too, which are just kind of like crazy.
Yeah.
Like Hayes and Nora and oh yeah.
One of my we'll call him fancy ex-boyfriends, he had a buddy named Hayes, and I was just like, are you kidding me? But the stone cold part of Foxes, my editor was like, what do you think if we changed the title to Stone Cold Fox? And I like flipped for it and felt stupid that I didn't think of it myself, because it just so like encapsulates B as a character. So I'm thrilled with the title. I'm obviously thrilled with the cover. Berkeley nailed it. I have the same manicure, which I know people won't see, but I just I've been really, really happy at Berkeley and feel like they fully understood what I was trying to do. And then on all the other, like the assets part of the business, they just delivered in every way. So I'm really excited for the book to be out in the world and in readers' hands.
And readers will eat it up. So check this one out. When does it officially drop?
February 14th, Valentine's Day. Very cheeky, because it's not really at all about love, but you can give one to your Valentine. You can also give one to someone you don't like as a warning.
It's so good. Yeah, I know. Feel like, especially if your name is Gale.
Yeah, really. If you have a friend named Gale in your life and you want to rouse her a little bit, you should give her this book and see how she responds. But no, I'll be interested to see. It's funny because I feel like most readers are going to be Team B, but then I've heard from some early readers that are very fond of Gale, and there's a hashtag Gale Force, like Gale Force wins, which really makes me laugh. But you know what? I think that's the stuff that I'm really excited to see what readers talk about and discuss, because I don't think it's super clear who the heroes and villains are in the story, and it's all very complex, just like people are, and it'll just be fun to see where readers land with these characters, and even some of the tertiary characters that I couldn't spend that much time with just by virtue of being in B's head. But I'll be excited to see, like, you know, who the Wren heads are and people respond to Calliope. Calliope and Wren are two of my favorite
I loved Calliope. I love the fact that like her parents just went for it and were like, yeah, no, we're doing this. Calliope, we're doing 3 C's. We're gonna do Chloe, we're gonna do Collin, because you know that works. And Collin is kind of a tame name compared to other people. And then they're just like, nope, Calliope, we're doing this.
And she's so funny. Like, I don't know. I think maybe aside from Gale, though I did work very hard on her to be 3-dimensional, but my hope is readers see the affection I had for everyone and making sure you could see all sides of them, even if you can't develop them as much as B or Gale. I still think everyone's really well developed and has their own arc and things going on. And that's something, if and when the TV show comes to pass, that I look forward to being able to create new stories with characters that I love so much in a new way.
Excellent. Well, once again, this was Jessikah with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. Our guest was
Rachel Koller Croft.
And we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.